catch me on the run, cause I'm gone, yeah. I blaze trails, set fire to what's behind me. No, I'm never looking back, I'm on the run. I could only ever be what I'm made to be. Feels good when I'm living on the edge. Watch me now, roll like thunder, gonna shake the ground. Can't stop me now, I don't give up and I won't back down. I'm a force of nature, can't be contained. I got lightning running all through my veins. Watch me now, watch me now.
Hi, my name is Wyatt Milam, and I'm from Canova, West Virginia. When I'm back home in Canova, you will find me at my local Parmar store.
We had that golden boot pride at Parmar. There are literally hundreds of Parmar stores in West Virginia, Kentucky, Ohio, and Pennsylvania, and even more on the way. Download the Parmar app to save even more. And whether it's food, gas, groceries, or whatever, we have you covered at Parmar. West Virginia proud and ready to serve you.
And if there's not a Parmar store near you now, there will be soon.
Hello and welcome, Mountaineers. How are my friends today? I'm the Wolfman, Dale Wolfley, and this is the WolfMan's Call. Yes, thank you for joining me today because we've got a pretty darn good show. We're going to today have a former coach, Jay Paterno, 17 years. He coached at Penn State University. He's in the Board of Trustees now. He's very much in the forethinking of college football nationally with NIL and, of course, with college realignment. We'll talk about that. And also with Coach Jay, he's written a lot of books, and I really highly recommend it. Go to jvpaterno.com. I'm going to tell you why, because he's pretty smart, really cerebral, and you're going to love that interview. And we're going to get to it right away. And then we're going to get to, guess what? We're going to go ahead with Aaron Beasley. I told you I didn't have much time to doctor it up, but you know what? His interview is straight out, man. He's a Mountaineer Hall of Famer. Trying to work with him, talk about getting to the National Football Foundation, the Hall of Fame there. I mean, Beast, man. He's consensus All-American. He did so much for WVU and so much for anywhere he's gone, especially when you think about him down there in Jacksonville and what he's about to do. So stay tuned for those interviews. But first, I got to tell you some exciting news. Once again, the WolfMan's Call is being sponsored by, that's right, Parmar Stores is once again the official lead sponsor of the WolfMan's Call. And I want to tell you why it's so important. Parmar Stores, they're adding stores left and right in 5 different states right now, I believe. But what they're doing is they're helping the community. Just like next week when we're going to go broadcast live from the Greenbrier. Parmar Stores is a big sponsor. Brian Wall, the head of Parmar Stores, is on the board of the Game Changers. What is Game Changers? It is preventing the misuse of opioids and substance abuse for West Virginia youth. You hear me? This pandemic that has hit West Virginia with this opioid and substance abuse. Okay, Parmar Stores is standing on the front line with Game Changers, with all the other people that are taking an active role in finding solutions to end this. That's Parmar Stores. Okay, Parmar Stores, right there, the Wolfman's Call. Thank you so much, Brian Wall. Love it. It's important. It's important for our youth. If you don't give a darn about the kids, well, then I'm going to give a darn about you, because that is what's important. These kids getting hooked on this crap doesn't belong. Does not belong. And that's just the way it is and the way I feel. And I'm so proud in the right way, but be hooked up with Parmar Stores and what they mean and what they do for our communities. Woo! Well, you know what? Let's get a little bit of that. A little bit of a celebration. say. All right. Very good. That's enough. All right. We're going to roll, guys. We're going to get it going. I'm so excited. We have Jay Paterno, man, coming along here. Let me find him right there. Let's get it roll. I love the interview. Dude's really cool. Even though he's from Penn State, I played against him. He was quarterback. I was offensive line, so we really didn't play against each other, but our teams certainly did. So there we go, man. Jay Paterno, let's rock and roll and see what he's got to say about the Nittany Lions, Mountaineers coming up to Happy Valley. And hang on, you wanted to go to Happy Valley, you wanted to play Penn State. I did too, baby. So let's get ready to see what's going. And guess what? Mountaineers are never afraid. Never afraid. Okay, you crazy Mountaineers. You asked for Penn State to get back on the schedule. Well, you got it. And I'm the same way, and I'm excited today because we have somebody special. And we have a guy that knows Penn State football like very few others. And that, of course, is Coach Jay Paterno, former coach at Penn State, coached 17 years with his father, Coach Joe Pa, if I can say that. He did recruit me, so I feel like I can say that. And love saying that. And of course, Jay, hey, welcome to the WolfMan's Call. Welcome to the show, man.
Good to be here. And I'm sure that West Virginia fans of a certain age don't have real fond memories of Joe as on the opposite sideline. I had a pretty good run. But, you know, always great respect between two programs. Don Nalen and my dad were great friends. Just they really, and Bowden when he was there. I mean, it's a great close by rivalry game. Going to be a lot of fun to open the season.
Yeah, well, let's get right into what you do, Jay. And of course, you wrote a couple books. Running on a book right now. We'll get to that in a little bit. But you know, you have the Pigskin Stew radio blog or radio show and the blog, and you're on TV, I believe, every week. The Nittany Lions with Coach Tom Bradley as well, right?
Yeah. So in the fall, we do a show called a 20-week show called Nittany Game Week, which is a TV show, and that's on. Actually, it's on in Wheeling. It's on in the Fox station in Wheeling and the Fox station in Pittsburgh, so a lot of West Virginia can get it. We do that show for 20 weeks. We do the Pigskin Stew radio show, which you are a resident WVU expert. Which the Nittany Game Week is really based on. It's a Penn State show, but Pigskin Stew is a national college football radio show where we kind of focus in on West Virginia, Pitt, and Penn State as well, and which you're on. And then, you know, I've written a couple books and working on another one. So a lot of different stuff going on. Best way to keep track of me is go to jvpaterno.com, and that's Jay, the letter V, paterno.com, and that's all that stuff's there.
Absolutely.
And I'm on the Board of Trustees of Penn State, so it's a lot of different stuff going on.
Well, you got a lot of things going on under your cap, that's for sure. But I did put the picture up, pigskin stew, if you can imagine it. We're gonna have
delicious, doesn't it?
It really does. And when you
guys, the football season's a little tough. There is actually a pigskin stew recipe, which I created, and you can find on the website. In fact, there is, I think, 3 pounds of meat in there, bacon, Italian sausage, some beef in there. So I mean, it's for those of you who are not vegans or vegetarians, it's a meaty stew.
Man, you have no idea how that fits down my alley. I mean,
definitely go get the recipe. Make it. I'm telling you, I will have it at a tailgate for you before the WVU game, which is at night. So we'll have all day, which could be trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know what, man? That is so cool. And your book that you're currently working on now, because you were talking about it with me earlier, it sounds really cool.
Yeah, I wrote a book about my dad years ago, and just kind of the life lessons and things I learned from him, as well as some of the things that cleared up some of the misperceptions about the end of his career. But the second book was called Hot Seat. And for a number of years, I would tell people stories about recruiting and what goes on in college football and certain things. And they would say, you ought to write a book. So I started to write the book. And then I realized if I write this book using everybody's names and everything, I get myself, I'm going to need some lawyers because you're going to have some people that come back. So I wrote it as a fiction book. It basically starts out with the head coach at Ohio State loses a bowl game after losing to Michigan. And the president comes in and says, you have 1 year to win or you're done. So that book came out 2 falls ago or 3 falls ago. And since then, a lot has changed. So people have come to me and said, why don't you write one that talks about what NIL is doing in transfer portal and all that kind of stuff. So I started to gather all that, and I'm putting it all together. But the book, the one is called Hot Seat that I'm done. I don't have the title not necessarily done for this one yet, but it'll be out this fall. But Hot Seat it's a lot of fun because all the stories, although it's a novel, the stories are based on things that I saw, witnessed, was part of on the recruiting trail, things we saw in terms of guys getting in trouble and doing stupid things and the politics of the campus and all that kind of stuff. So it takes you really into some of the real meat of what goes on in big time college football.
That's actually, it's really behind the scenes kind of what you don't get to see. So very cool, man. Well, listen, only got one question for you, and that is, what was it like? You had 17 years of coaching with your father, obviously successful. But, man, I got to imagine when you're the quarterback coach, you're a passing game offensive coordinator, and you don't score, and he looks down at you. What's it like, man? Is it stressful?
Oh, well, the thing about Joe was great. About this was great. And what people don't realize, because everybody's caught up in stats now. It's like, oh, where do you rank in this? What do you? And his whole philosophy was this: we're going to win games on defense. We're going to have great special teams, and offensively, our goal is to take care of the football, win situations. He wasn't worried about how many points you got as long as you got enough to win the game. And he wanted to be in a position in the tough games to win the game in the fourth quarter. So we were not one of those people that was constantly looking at our stats and saying, oh, we need to get 500 yards of offense. It was, we need to not turn the ball over. We got to do well on third downs. We got to be really good in the red zone. And you're going to win those games when you do those things. And he, so many people get caught up in the style points. So there was a little bit different philosophy than what you have now. But it was a lot of fun. I mean, there were some tough days, but at the end of the day, we were all trying to do the same thing, trying to do what we could to win the games. And so that part was really, I wouldn't trade those. I had a couple chances to think about leaving before he retired, and I got to the point where, I said, you know what, I'm only going to get so many years of this with him, so I'm not going to leave before he retires. Now, obviously, didn't turn out exactly the way we wanted, and some things have changed, but I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Yeah, one of my greatest memories of my life with football is being recruited by your father and him calling me from the national championship game. It was like for 30 seconds, but it was 30 seconds, man, that I remembered for my entire life. So, I thanked him for that. And in fact, we were both 1986 to 90. You were a quarterback at Penn State and grew into a coach. And
so we're old.
Yeah, we definitely know. Well, good. Well, let's move this on. Speaking of old, because NIL was never anything like that for us back in the day. But now as you said, you're on the Penn State Board of Trustees. And you guys are directly responsible for the NIL program. Am I right?
Yeah. About a year and a half ago, our old athletic director, Sandy Barber, was the athletic director, and there wasn't a lot going on with NIL. And I've been consulting in NIL stuff with a group that works nationally for 3.5 years now. When California passed the law, they brought me on to help them to consult. So they hired me. So I had a feel for what was going on nationally. So I went to, I got with a couple of people and said, we got to start a collective, because if we don't, nobody else will. So we started it. Now, as a trustee, I have to stay at 30,000 feet. I can't be involved on a day-to-day basis. There are a lot of things I can't do. So we got it started, got the mechanism in place, and got it going. And, it's been great to talk to people involved in other collectives and things, just to compare notes. So obviously not giving away the store as to what we're doing as to what they're doing. But, I had a conversation with Oliver Luck not too long ago about, just comparing notes as to what he's seeing nationally. Because what everybody's worried about with the collective is what is the rules nationally? What is everybody dealing with? What's the IRS going to do with the kids, what they're making, and the collectives, how they're handling it. So we're all talking about what this all looks like. So it's been great to talk to a lot of people different nationally. And I think what West Virginia is doing right now, but what we're seeing, they're doing a good, really, really good job. And I think it's part of it because a guy like Oliver Luck's involved with it.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Ollie, man, I tell you, he's taking care of West Virginia in a lot of ways. And It's good to have your foresight in there. Do you see, being that you're in the forefront of this, do you see any regulations coming down where this thing could get a little more under control?
I think it's got to happen, but right now it's a state by state patchwork. There's a lot of thought that Congress should do something. I think that's a mistake. Obviously, they can't even get the debt ceiling right. So how are we going to let I think that's probably a little more important than NIL right now,
Right.
just slightly. But I think what's going to have to happen is revenue sharing is coming. The Supreme Court's going to come down the side of the athletes. It would shock me if they don't when the next case gets to them. So I think all these things are all going to come to a head at one time, and I think it'll take literally rewriting the Constitution, the NCAA, so to speak, to get this done. And I think it'll happen. But in the meantime, it's a crazy, crazy marketplace.
Okay. All right. Well, let's move on, and thank you for that. But let's get into the meat. The meat is Penn State University football. Happy Valley appears to be happy again. It looks like after the season last year, 11-2, only losing to Michigan and to Ohio State, obviously the two big teams and one of them in the big country. Where's Penn State at? Let's start off with the offense. I just read about Coach Franklin saying that he has an intentional way of the way they want to go about this summer workouts with the players that are going to be the key players. Let's start off with your offense.
Well, I think the biggest question is going to be quarterback. I mean, there's certainly Drew Allar came in with a lot of hype. He's a 5-star guy, whatever that means. And I can tell you, as a guy who was a recruiting coordinator for a number of years and put together some really highly rated classes, sometimes when I left Penn State, the all-time leading receiver was a guy named Deion Butler, who was a walk-on, and who ended up getting drafted and played in the NFL. So, I mean, those rankings, they mean something on February when it's on signing day for all that. But, it's a friend of mine raised hunting dogs for a long time. And he'd say, Jay, you can have the best dog with the best pedigree and everything, but until you take him out and shoot the gun and get a rabbit, you don't know what you got. Because sometimes some dogs, when the gun goes off, they hide behind your leg and others go chasing the rabbit. So it's going to come down to see what Drew Allar does in terms of chasing the rabbits when the gun goes off Saturday night in September when West Virginia's at Penn State. I think that's the number one thing. I think running back, really, really good with Nick Singleton. A lot of people don't talk about Katron Allen, the co-freshman with him. I think Katron Allen gives you a couple things that Singleton doesn't in terms of the pass game. Those two guys are really good. The offensive line, they're talking about it being pretty good for them. They've got a left tackle who everybody, Ole Fashionow, everybody thinks is really a top prospect and, maybe a first rounder and could have gone last year, but he's only 19 years old, 20 years old, young guy. I think he made the right decision because it's going to be a lot different blocking guys in college than Von Miller, potentially, guys like that are 27, 28 years old, like the two kids who played at Ohio State, Bosa's, those kind of guys. So he made the right choice. I think the biggest question for them is going to be wide receiver. They just have not seemed to have that guy last year that they can hang their hat on, a number one or a number two guy. That's going to be a question mark. I think, but it's going to come down to how well, if Allar is the guy at quarterback, he's not a mobile guy like they've had with Trace McSorley and then they had with Sean Clifford. So the guys around him have to be better, because he's not going to get you out of some trouble like the other guys could. If it's 3rd and 10 and the left tackle whiffs, you're punting. Whereas with Clifford or with guys they've had in the past, they might be able to extend the play and get you some. So that'll be what I'm going to be looking for Saturday night when they play West Virginia.
Do you find it interesting that, say, Drew Allar, that he's a 5-star, but he's not mobile to like other quarterbacks? I mean, that he actually got that 5-star ranking.
Yeah, I think there's two schools of thoughts. People like the big strong arm guy that's in the pocket, throws the ball around. But if you look at the NFL right now, it's a throwback to taking you back a number of years, because if you look at where the game is going, you look at the first 4 or 5 guys taken in the draft at quarterback this year, they're all mobile guys. And I think everybody's realized those guys that can extend the play and throw the ball downfield are so valuable, because if you do, it covers up a lot of sins with your offensive line. And I've always been a guy the last number of years of my career. I liked those guys that were mobile, and we had some guys that were Big Ten MVPs at quarterback, and they were both mobile guys that could make some things happen. If you look at Ohio State, you look at some of those guys. Now you look at Michigan; they're more of a drop-back type offense, and they've had success running the football, but they've been very good in the offensive line. So it's going to be curious to see what happens there. And I think, I forgot, one of the things I forgot talking about the offense, the tight end position has been a pretty good strength for Penn State as well. So they got a chance to be good offensively, but it's going to come down to, the guy under center. How good can he be? How soon can he be that good?
Yeah, it's really interesting because obviously, and especially in today's day and age, although I'm not sure with Penn State because he still loved to run the ball. I mean, he had 2,000 yard running backs last year.
I think they were both in the 980 range.
980, okay, close to it.
I mean, close enough, yeah.
Yeah. So you still love I still love that football, old school, like you are, like I am. It's still fun to watch, controlling the line of scrimmage. Now, speaking of that, let's flip it over to the defense. I also read that Coach Franklin said that after the spring game, he's still looking a little more competition at the defensive tackle position, but otherwise, it seems to me like the defense is kind of pretty good. Top 5 rankings preseason.
Yeah, I think they've got a kid named Abdul Carter at linebacker who I think can really, really be something special. He's a big guy, can run. The question is going to be, as you alluded to with Coach Franklin, is going to be up front because the games that they struggled last year. I mean, Michigan took the ball and just ran for 400 yards, and they just were not big enough up front. And I think what Michigan has done in this league is they went from where everybody was getting into the spread stuff. And Harbaugh finally said, you know what, this is what I am. This is what I know how to do. I'm going to get an offensive line. I'm going to control the game. And I think everybody adjusted to Ohio State's offense and got a little bit smaller up front, a little smaller at linebacker, got a lot of nickel backs, a lot of defensive backs on the field. And Michigan said, okay, you got those defensive backs in the field. Let's see how they handle a 320-pound pulling guard on them. On the perimeter, and you know how corners are. The corners are there usually because they can't tackle, and safeties are safeties because they can't cover as well as corners. So Michigan's figured out this is what we're going to be. So I think that's going to be the big question for Penn State is can they hold up front against teams that want to run the football, and I think that's number one. I think in the secondary they've recruited really well. They've been deep. They lose Joey Porter Jr. to the Steelers. The kid named King at corner. Some people think he'll be better. He's not as big as Porter was. He's a 5'11" guy, maybe. The kid named Keaton Ellis, who's from State College, who I've known for, he's the same age as my son. Known him a long time. He's a guy in the secondary that can do some things at safety. So it's going to be, they'll have good enough guys at each level. The question is, can they stay healthy and be deep enough?
Yeah, which is the question for every team every year. Can you stay healthy? And so go the rewards, right? If you are, you're pretty good usually. Well, okay, so then that's a pretty good team. You seem pretty fired up. Is Penn State getting back to where they're supposed to be in your mind? Have they dropped before? Not last year, obviously they were very successful, but consistently. Are they getting back to that top 5 team consistently?
I think the next 2 years are going to tell the tale because, the hype about what they've recruited, is it going to match? Is the performance going to match? Can they catch Ohio State and Michigan? If you look at it, Ohio State, really, in 2011 was the last year I was here. We beat Ohio State out there, and since then they've beaten them one time. So Ohio State's had their number. They got to get them. And Michigan has, they were splitting with Michigan in games for a few years in there. And now Michigan, with the difference in philosophy and the way they're playing offensively, has been a little different. So, it'll be curious to see if they can get those two teams. Because as great as the season was last year, win the Rose Bowl, they were third in the division. And, that's and now you're going to add USC and UCLA in the mix next year. This might be the year you got to try and grab something because it's going to be tough for anybody. Now, with the playoff going to 12 teams, that changes things and makes it a little bit easier to get in the playoff. But, this will be the last chance they have to get into a 4-team playoff. But, I think the big question is going to be, as it relates to Ohio State, is their quarterback going to be good enough to do some of the things they've had because they've had great quarterback play. But can Penn State catch those guys? And you know, they do get a crossover game with Iowa in week 4. So and they have Illinois early on in the season, and Illinois has gotten a lot better. So the 2 crossover games are going to be tougher than they've been. So it's going to be an interesting season to see how this one all unfolds. But the next 2 years I think are really going to tell the tale.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So I just open up another question in my mind, and since I have you here, I hope you don't mind. But
no, not at all.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit of what's your foresight into realignment. What do you think is happening now across the nation? Where do you see it going?
I hope we can sit tight for a little while. If you said to me, you can settle this whole thing no matter what. If they made me king of college football, I would start out by saying, number one, to the Big Ten, the SEC, you're being greedy. Because all anybody seems to think is the more money you get from TV, the better you're going to be, and there's some truth to that because you have some resources. Mm-hmm. But back in the early '80s, when the entire TV contract structure changed, a number of these conferences got together, created some national packages, and the money was much more even, like the NFL is. You don't see the NFC East doing their own deal in the NFL, and they're having all this extra money to go spend on players and facilities and coaches. So, the ideal thing would be for the television money to be nationalized, and that levels the playing field. And then USC and UCLA can go back into the Pac-12 where they belong. Ohio State and Oklahoma and Texas can go back to the Big 10 or 12, whatever it is, Big 12, where they belong, and get back to what matters. And teams like Penn State can play Pitt and West Virginia on a much more regular basis. But that's not going to happen, unfortunately. That's not going to happen. But that's what should be. So as long as there's this imbalance in the television stuff, people are always going to be willing to jump around. And I think you look at the Pac-10, it's the Pac-10 now, but it was Pac-12. It'll be the Pac-12, whatever it is. You're old enough to remember the Pac-8 like I do. Then it was the Pac-10, then it's Pac-12. But what are they going to do TV-wise? What's the Big 12? How's the Big 12 going to end this up? Now, I think it's good for West Virginia that Cincinnati's now in the Big 12, so they've got a team that's nearby. UCF is in the Big 12, so that gives them games in Florida. They recruit in Florida more so than maybe they have. I think the Big 12 certainly came out of this better than the Pac-12 did.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay, so moving on to the last question. What is the mystique about playing a Penn State team in Happy Valley at State College? Because there is a mystique. I played it. I go in there. I tell you what, twice we almost beat you. Twice. And you guys have pulled it out. And I'm probably still not over it yet. But regardless, it's an amazing place to play. I think it was 87,000, 85,000 back then.
Yeah,
I played. Now it's what's it hold now? I don't even know.
107. There'll probably be 108,000 people there opening night. But I know the 2 games you're talking about. In '87, Blair Thomas just he was carrying guys on his back at our place. 80. No, that was what was that?
87, 89.
87. 88. You got us real bad down there. That was one of the 2 times Joe lost you guys. And then 89 was just a great defensive football game against Major Harris. I mean, he just was such a talent. But I think the thing about this is, when I was a kid, I knew kids that scalped tickets back before StubHub, and they loved they made more money on West Virginia games than anyone else, because literally thousands of West Virginia fans would show up without tickets and pay whatever they had to get in there. And it was a lot of fun, and those games were great. And it's going to be a lot of fun to have a night game. NBC is kicking off their entire Big Ten TV package with that. So it's going to be a lot of hype. We're doing what they call I think it's the helmet stripe game, where the entire stadium's in white except there's a blue stripe down the middle. Okay. So it'll be close to a whiteout for West Virginia. It'll be a lot of fun. The tailgating is going to be all day. It's Labor Day weekend, so nobody has to go to work on Monday, so people can recover for 48 hours. I think it's going to be an incredible environment. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to play these games. And for people a certain age, there's a lot of memories about some great games and great matchups, and the drive down there. I mean, it's close. It's nice to play people close that are close by, because their fans show up, and it'll be a fun weekend at State College for people.
There's no doubt about it. just remember one thing, Mountaineer fans. Coach Joe Paterno wanted a Big East League. He wanted it, and Pitt screwed it.
Yes, so we're all united. That's all Pitt's fault. Yes,
It's all
Syracuse
Pitt's
blew it.
fault. That's definitely all right.
You know,
Well,
if you look at the TV markets right now, because at that time there were 7 teams. It was going to be BC, Rutgers, Temple, Penn State, Pitt, West Virginia, Syracuse, and then Maryland was probably going to jump from the ACC to get in it. And then, you know, at that point, Virginia Tech probably would have joined. I mean, we probably would have had it would have turned into a really, really good all sports league.
yes.
And they wanted Big East basketball, and they jumped. And so Penn State joined the Big Ten, and that set, back in '89, it was announced, and that set all the dominoes for what we've seen in the TV stuff now, what we've seen even now, all these years later, 34 years later.
Yeah, no doubt. No matter what, TV would have taken over, and this would have happened, regardless to some degree. Jay Paterno, listen. What's your Twitter? What's your following? Your website again, so we get your books.
At jvpaterno.com. That's JAY, the letter V, Paterno.com. I'm on Twitter at Jay Paterno. My name JAY Paterno spelled out, and I think on Instagram at JV Paterno. So I'm on all those things, all that fun stuff.
We're doing the radio show again.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you better be ready, and you better be ready for a road trip up to Happy Valley week 1.
It's coming, and you know I'm going to be ready to go for the Mountaineers, baby. All right, Coach Jay Paterno, thanks so much, man, and appreciate your time, and best wishes for enjoy your summer.
Same to you. Thanks, man. Great talking to you.
You too, man. Thank you. Oh, yeah. That's good stuff when you start talking to Jay Paterno about Penn State and, you know, getting it here at the WolfMan's call. This is just May. This is going to be a build up, a hype. You know, if you think about what we've started here in this week, really coming on with a solid 3 o'clock time, you know, we've had some great people. We had Frank Fear on there. Frank Fear is going to be on Monday with another story from the Band of Brothers, then and now, the 66 and 70 guys. And we're going to have John Pennington, the head coach for West Virginia State, is coming on. He's got a lot in the cooker on Monday. And there's a whole bunch that we got planned up. We're going to be at the Greenbrier next week doing broadcasts there for the Game Changer. You know, just so much is going on right off the bat in May. So stay tuned because we're here Monday through Thursday. You know, it depends. When the season gets here, we're probably going to expand it more than an hour because there's going to be a lot to talk about. But we're going to have players come out. Listen, man, the WolfMan's call. This is it. If you want to know about WVU football, not only are you going to hear from me, all right, I'm the least of it. You're going to hear from my Mountaineer brothers, and they're going to tell you exactly what they think. All been through it. And guess what I got next? Yeah, that is correct. I have Aaron Beasley coming on. Let's get him on there. Listen, I didn't able to doctor it up, and you know, sometimes you get a really good interview. And I've known Bees I coached him. I coached him at WVU. Obviously, I wasn't coaching defensive backs. Although I'll tell you the cornerback story of how I taught cornerbacks how to pass pro and do press coverage out of that pass pro, but that's a story for another day. But Aaron Beasley, I was a coach on staff, and he was a phenomenal athlete, and he really is a caring person. And I'm going to tell you this, you know, Bees, man, this is a great interview. So without any further ado, let's find the Bees, man, rolling. And the Mountaineer brothers just keep rolling along. And this Mountaineer brother, boy, I tell you what, he's something special. I can remember the first time I tried to get him on the network radio. Woo! It was like pulling hair out of my head to get him there on time. And then, of course, is Aaron Beasley. Killer Bees! How are we doing, buddy?
Wolfman.
Boy, what a treat. Yeah, what a treat this is, brother. Hey, thanks for stopping in on the WolfMan's call. And, you know, a couple of things are going on. We were talking last week about you specifically with Mark Plants, who is now the president of the chapter of the West Virginia Football Foundation for the National Foundation. They're chapter president. and we have 10 members. And it's tough to get our guys voted in when there's only 10 people in the entire state. It only costs $60 to register. We have 10 members in the state of West Virginia. Mark Plants is taking over, and he is going ahead, and he's going to raise that number way up. But the reason why we need to raise that number way up is because you, Brother Mountaineer, Aaron Beasley, are nominated because you were a consensus All-American, because you did so many things in college football. 3 picks against the Hokies, second most all-time picks in the season for WVU. You are a WVU Hall of Famer. You did so many things, 6 consecutive games with a pick, man. I mean, you're a robber out there on the field, man. You did so much for WVU. We want to get together and help you through this nomination to get into the Football Foundation, the National Football Foundation Hall of Fame. What do you think of that, and how important would that be for you?
I mean, you know me, Wolf, and it's like you said, it's like trying to pull hair out of somebody's head, but I'm just a humble dude, and like I don't think about those kind of big honors. Like the biggest honor for me was to actually play Division I football. It's like me from a small town. I didn't even play football in 10th grade. I ran cross country because I wanted to go travel for the first time in my life. I don't think a lot of people know that in 10th grade, I ran cross country, and I ran only because we went to Oregon. I thought I was going to come back and quit and then go play football, but I ran so good they wouldn't let me quit. I was an integral part of that cross country team. We won Pac-10 championships for the first time. That was our high school conference, and then we won a district championship, and I took 4th in the district. And for a guy like that who only played basketball, for a guy who fractured his knee his junior year in basketball, then that same summer I fractured my knee going into my senior year of football, to have no scholarship offers, and then take a chance on myself by going to Valley Forge Military. I mean, I'll take any accolade, but it was just an honor to make it. Going through West Virginia and living a dream and playing in the NFL 9 years. It's like a lot of people ask me, what was it like? And the first thing I can say is, man, it was like being a fan in a helmet. I'm out there playing against Jerry Rice and playing against Tim Brown and all these guys that I always emulated growing up. I'm out there playing against them, and it was like one of those things where when I played, I brought the best out of me. I was like, I got to show these guys who this small town kid Aaron Beasley is, representing West Virginia all the time, the blue collar style of play, playing physical out there. Before this game got so finesse, we had running backs, and you should have seen the shoulder pads back then. You know how big our shoulder pads back then. And now everything's about speed, but everything back there is power. And it's like West Virginia got me ready for that because, I mean, we used to have some physical practices back there with Coach Niller.
Yeah, absolutely. Based looking at your NFL career, you did have your best year, I think, for interceptions. You had 6, and yep. I believe it was. And now Clancy and I were trying to figure out, do you still hold the record for Jacksonville for the longest interception return of 93 yards? Is that still the record?
I'm not, man. I wish I did keep up on stuff like
oh, you're dogging me now. You don't know that?
I don't even know. I think I know it was 93, but I'm not sure.
All right. Well, very good.
I'm gonna tell you, Wolf. I still think about all the interceptions I dropped, because as soon as you said 6, I said, well, damn, I know I dropped like 5 that year. I should have had like 10 or 11.
Oh my goodness, man! You know what, Bees? What I love about you, that cross country story is absolutely amazing. I did not know that. I didn't know you went to Virginia, the military place, for a 5th-year prep, just so you could. But for football, that says so much about taking a chance on yourself.
I mean, I grew up in a family of athletes. Ralph Sampson's my cousin. Louis Riddick, who's on ESPN NFL, is my cousin. Tim Lewis, who's a D coordinator for the Steelers for a long time, is my cousin. I grew up and all my family was sports, and that's all I ever dreamt that I would be. You know, I tell a lot of people, you know, that book, The Secret, came out. Well, I was like, well, I practiced The Secret in 2nd grade. I said, I went to the dentist one time and my dentist had that fancy signature. I'm like, well, how'd you do it so fancy? He's like, because that is who you are and that's what you want to be and that's what you want people to see and it represents you. So I started practicing my autograph in 2nd grade. And I was like, in 2nd grade, I had the same autograph.
Well, you know what? That's just freaking awesome. That's incredible. Okay, so this is what I want to do. Before we move on, I want to say this. WVU, sign up. It's the National Football Foundation.org. It costs $60. Anybody can vote. Anybody can vote. Bees, hopefully, is going to be on that ticket in the next month. We're working on that to get you out there. I know you don't care, apparently, but we do. Okay, because we want to see you represent, along with Major Harris, along with Daryl Taylor, you know, along with Coach Nayland.
And
Yes.
that's one thing, and that's one thing I do think about. I would love for it to happen because me and Coach Nayland, we had such a special bond, and like he would let me wear any number I wanted to at practice. I loved it. I'll be number 91, 71, 64. He just let me go out there and just be myself. And I would love to probably, I think like I could be one of the last people that could be in there for Coach Neal and let him see this.
Yeah.
I would love that. That would be awesome.
Well, you know, that is, and I love the way you put that exactly. And I was only joking with you that you didn't care because I know you cared about your career. I know you did because you take pride in what you did, and especially from where you have come from. And that really drives me to the next point. And you've trained young athletes, you have trained professional athletes, and what you're doing now is you're raising a youth center down in Jacksonville. Go ahead and talk about that and all that you're trying to do.
Well, it just comes about like just my love of sports, and I just know what it has done for me and what it could do for a lot of kids. It's funny, I'm at this track meet. I'm like, every kid on earth should run track and do track and field because it's made for everyone. You might not be able to run, but you can throw a shot put, or you can just go out here and compete. And it's like you're competing against yourself, trying to get better. And it's like the life lessons that you learn through sport carry over into real life. So I was down in Florida and, went down there for a reunion and, just being around there, I'm like, man, I need a place to train. I'm kind of being selfish about it because I just want a place to train kids and for kids to be able to go after school because, with the crime rate that's going on down there, I feel like a lot of things are being put into these programs and it's like we're just burning money instead of putting a tangible place where kids can go, where kids have internet, after school study halls, training, esports, just place where kids can go because the worst time for kids is from 3 to 12. That's when there's no access to programming that we could keep kids off the streets. And that's kind of where I came up. That's how I came up. Every day I was at the community center. I'd had football practice and go play basketball for 3 more hours, or cross country, go run 5 to 6 miles and then go play basketball for 2 or 3 more hours. It was like, that was our place to come together. We go play pool, we keep competing. And I feel like that's just, to me, that's a necessity in every town right now, because sports takes out the racism, the religion, the gender. It takes all of that out. And it's all about the pride in your team. I feel like if each town does this, it becomes a community pride thing instead of some other pride, like have pride in your town, represent your town. That's all I'm trying to do. Spread that good energy.
All your life, that's what you've tried to do, honestly, Bees. And I think that's a fair statement to you. Well, hey, best of wishes to you. How can we help? Go ahead. You know what? After this interview, I'm going to go ahead and pump this up because we're going to play this later. I'll put out any kind of thing you want about a place of how they can help. They want to get involved. Hey, we go out and listen to WolfMan's Call. We go all the way down to Jacksonville now. We're down in Florida, baby.
They call it
All right. Listen, so I know you're at your daughter's track meet. Appreciate the time. But last thing, let's talk about the Mountaineers. You were on all my shows there. Not my shows, Joe's, and all of our, it was our shows. It was everybody's show for pregame. And I think it's important because you had a lot of things to say. And what did you see from last year's team, defense, attitude, maybe what's their identity, whatever it is that you saw? What do you think that they need to improve on this year, especially opening up with Penn State?
Well, my thing is it all works together, the front and the secondary. But the one thing I think we need to really get better with our technique. I'm gonna just speak from a defensive back perspective because that's what I know. I just feel like when I watch some of the coverages, I don't see proper leverage because I just know, the game is not about the out route. They're going to catch out routes, but people want to make big chunky plays. And we gave up so many chunk plays that it's hard to build any confidence when you're giving up those plays. And I feel like what we could do better is have better alignments as our defensive backs. I think our defensive backs need to play more inside technique because we gave up a lot of seam routes. I mean, you remember I was calling that we're giving up seam routes all year.
Correct.
And I feel like if we're going to play that kind of coverage, we have to get hands on guys getting down the field. We're giving a lot of free releases, and the game is all about rhythm and timing. This is a game of choreography. And if we don't do anything to disrupt receivers, and we're just going to keep up giving these chunks because we only have a 3-man rush. And sometimes it's 4, but you can see where the guy's coming from. And we have to be multiple in some ways. I feel like we can't just have a 3-man front because we're letting them know what we're doing every time. And then that linebacker shows and they know where to block. And that stuff, I mean, they're studying. These guys are geniuses on the other side, and they know how to beat that stuff. So we got to do some things that really are different. And at the same time, we have to be technically sound.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a great point, especially, if you go into a place like, I keep pointing this out to everybody, if you go into Penn State at 108, 109,000, Tommy Robstock I had on earlier, and he was like, state of the fundamentals. You have to blank everything else out. And I think especially at a place like Penn State, you have to really focus on your fundamentals. Alignment is fundamentals. Free releases, I'm sorry, but that's fundamentals. If you're a linebacker and you're staggered out there and you could take a shot at a guy, at a receiver, especially the inside, and just give him a shot just to readjust him, it helps your buddy. I mean, he said it's the front, it's the back, it's also the middle. And I think that's the defense understanding the whole concept would be a good improvement this year if they could do it. I'm not going to talk about the transfer portal with you because you've been in Jacksonville not paying attention. So I'm going to save you from that because the question of the week has been, are we winning the transfer portal? So you're saved. Okay, and I'm not.
I can give you my definition of winning the transfer portal.
Okay, well, I'll take it.
My definition of winning the transfer portal is, of course, guys are going to leave, but you keep your best guys because they want to stay there. They want to be a part of this. So that is one way to keep them. Another way to keep them is we sending guys to the league. Guys want to go to the league. They're going to transfer to where they're getting coached or where they think they're going to play better ball. Another way that we win, we get players that come from the same level that we are playing on. We go against Texas and Oklahoma again, right?
Yeah.
And we still got Texas Tech and Kansas. I mean, we got to get guys that are on that level. I mean, because, like last year, I think the guys that we brought in, they're good players, but I don't know if they were ready for that level right away. It's such an adjustment of speed. So I feel like we got to get some guys that are going to come here at the same level as we're playing.
All right, Bees, last question. I have to ask this because you survived 9 seasons in the NFL. Not survived, you exceeded, whatever you want to call it. You played 9 seasons in the NFL, but you have good speed, but you were never one with great speed. You won other ways. What was it like for you to have to adjust to NFL speed and be successful?
Well, I learned early that you got to put hands on guys. It was funny when my rookie year, Coach Holmes was did the internship down there.
Okay.
And the first thing he did, he called back to West Virginia and he called Logan, Charles, and Van, and he was like, "Man, I don't even know." You know how Coach Holmes, so I don't even know who this guy is. He over here all quiet. I'm like, he's down here, he ain't talking, he ain't barking. He was like, they all called me. They was like, "What's wrong with you?" I'm like, "Yo, I'm just trying to adjust." Man, I got Jimmy Smith over here. I got Keelan McCardle. There's Andre Rison. We got Willie Jackson. And there's some guys I'd never heard of. I'm like, all these dudes are good. And it's like, what happened? And here's the adjustment that I made, man. And Jimmy, here's one thing that I love. Jimmy Smith, one of the best receivers, should be in the Hall of Fame, NFL Hall of Fame. He would come to me and he would say, "Man, you don't even know what you do," because I put my hands on him and I would knock him off his route and I messed up all his timing every time. He said he would go after practice and study me. And I'd be like, "Man, I used to go after practice and study you." So it's like we pushed each other. And at the same time, when he was like destroying people, it was just giving me confidence because he would come to the sideline. "Man, that's because of you, man. We work so hard at practice. It's easy in the game." It's like I would always take that mentality of just every play, no matter practice or hard, make it like it's a game. So you never have to play up a level. You always play at that same high level.
Wow, Beast. That's so much good information. So much good information. All right, brother. Well, I'm going to let you get back to your daughter's track meet. And I'm going to tell you this, man, is that, I want to see this. I've talked to you for a long time about this. You're so deserving to be in the National Football Foundation Hall of Fame. I want everybody to listen. National Football Foundation Hall of Fame.org. Get there. If you can sign up, $60, you can vote. We got to get the bees, killer bees in there, man. Oh,
It's a lifetime membership. Is that lifetime membership?
I think it's year to year. But regardless, I want to see you in there, and it's important. And it's important to the state and to the university. So God bless you, brother. Go see your daughter track, man. I kept you up long enough out of it. So,
all right, my man, Wolf. Love you, bro.
Love you too, man. Always a pleasure. Killer bees, baby. Aaron Beasley.
All right, well, talk to you, bro.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it. Go ahead.
No doubt, Wolf. Anything for you, man.
Wow. Just watching that again, I was like, man, that was a great interview, just seeing it and, going through it. Had the guys went in to go ahead in the editing department and edited. And, I just listened to that again. Every single youthful player should listen to Aaron Beasley. Every single player that wants to be special, that wants to rise up, that wants to be better than what they are, that wants to reach another level, that wants to be noticed, that has pride, that wants to compete at the highest level that they can. Whatever that level may be, it doesn't matter. It's all relative. But whatever level they want to reach, that right there, that's from greatness. Greatness telling you with Jimmy Smith, Andre Rison, Keelan McCardle. I mean, going there and competing. Aaron Beasley, as I said, was not a total speedster. He wasn't slow. Don't get me wrong. That's not what we're saying. He's kind of a big corner. But he lasted 9 seasons, and he lasted successfully with 9 seasons. Consensus All-American. He had great instincts. He could see plays develop. He was like a quarterback on defense. And he could see the plays going. And what does he say? Get hands on. Now, let me see who said that. Brian McGinn. Hope I said that right, Brian McGinn. You're saying is, do current WVU coaches reach out for advice from former players? It seems some of this is basic coaching 101. Are we failing in the basics? I'm not willing to say that right now. I will say that last year, the basics weren't being performed on the field. They were not. I can tell you and show you. Think about this. Some of the the guys that came out, we had some, FCS guys, James Madison, Murray State. Then we had some G5 guys, Colorado State. I mean, we had some young guys too, like freshmen, and they had to go against that Big 12 speed. I can remember Xavier Worthy in there and the Texas Tech wide receivers. And they were getting free releases. And our young guys, or the guys who'd never seen that type of speed before, were suffering. So I think now, maybe a year later, maybe get some hands-on. What does Beasley say? He had to get hands-on these guys to disrupt, to get them to stop. Linebackers, whatever, safeties, whoever it is. If you're not going to be there, if you're in a zone and that inside receiver or running backs coming through or tight end, give him a shot. Get in front of them. Make them rearrange, because you know what that does? It throws the timing off. It's not rocket science. But I'm going to say this to your question, so I want to be fair and truthful. I claim that I'm fair and truthful, and I want to answer every question. So, to current WVU coaches, I'm not going to talk about current WVU coaches. I'm going to say current coaches in general. A lot of them never made it to the NFL. And I'm not saying anything about anyone in particular whatsoever. I'm saying in general, a lot of coaches did not make it to the NFL. So when an NFL player comes in, and maybe it's a special team, or let's just say it was an offensive lineman, right? Offensive lineman comes in, and then there's an offensive lineman that coach that never made it to the NFL. They get a little territorial. They do. And this is the best way I can answer truthfully. And it's not really a jealousy or nothing like that. It's just territorial because maybe they didn't get to that level. So a little insecurity. Not jealousy, a little insecurity. So that's the best way I can answer that question. I hope it is, and I hope I answered your questions. I listened to Bees. What did you learn from Bees? I think Keith Hawkins said, it was blue collar. Yeah, Bees is all blue collar, man. And what's Mark here, or Joe saying? Mark Rogers interviewing Coach Neil Brown at 9 a.m. in the morning. We'll post a video later on the day. Keep an eye out. There you go. All right, so you have Mark Rogers going to be interviewing Neil Brown. Very good. And hopefully he'll ask him some tougher questions than he normally gets at his press conferences. All right, everybody. Listen, it's the WolfMan's call, and we're going to be leaving. But remember, excited here. Next week, we're broadcasting on Wednesday and Thursday from the Greenbrier Hotel down there. Looking forward to that. A lot of big names in there. We're gonna have some fun, and it should be really good. Parmar Stores is a big sponsor for them. So happy we're on board with Parmar Stores. WolfMan's call. Love it, man. Just love it. Game changers. Love what they're doing. Prevention of opioid and substance abuse. Be a game changer. Get involved, man. It's a fundraiser. Let's see what we can do next week. And of course, I think we got John Pennington coming up Monday. Frank Fear Hour is coming up on Monday. That is huge. Frank Fear Hour. Doesn't get any better. All right, everybody. Have a great rest of your week and weekend, and we'll see you next week. Gonna come back. I think we're gonna do the same thing. 3 o'clock again next Monday. Here we go.
Dan Cava has the largest selection of new Camrys in the area, and with $1,000 off sticker price, now is the best time to purchase your new Camry. We also have a wide variety of Tundras, some featuring the all-new TRD lift kit. And don't forget, all new Toyotas come with 2 years or 25,000 miles worth of free service from our award-winning service department, which you can schedule online, by phone, or through the Toyota app. Come see us at Dan Cava Toyota World in Fairmont. Shop the world!
Stationers, #1 office supplier in West Virginia. Always in stock.